Oh,
So let me find my notes here, and welcome to this new book news reading, celebrating writers whose books were published during the pandemic lockdown. My name is Karen Schubert, and I wish you could have been part of this really fun conversation that just took place here, but I'm so glad you're here now. I'm the director of Lit Youngstown, a literary arts nonprofit in Northeast Ohio. We have programs for writers, readers, and storytellers, and I'd like to invite you to a new book news reading next Sunday, December 20th, featuring Jan Beatty, Patricia Clark, and Yvonne Zipter. More information is available at lityoungstown.org. I'm very pleased to feature these three poets today, and congratulations to them on their publications. We'll follow today's reading with a conversation about these books. Meg Pochrus is the author of 7 collections of flash fiction and is a 2-time recipient of the Blue Light Book Award. She serves as founding co-editor of the Best Microfiction Anthology Series. Her new book is The Lost Detector, published by Bamboo Dark Press. Welcome, Meg.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's wonderful how we can do this even though we're so far apart geographically. I'm an expat living in England, and I'm thrilled to be reading with Jeff and Denise, poets that I've admired for a really long time. I'll launch right in here with my reading. Last month, my flash fiction novella was published by a new chapbook press called Bamboo Dark Press, and it's available from online booksellers now. This is the little book. The Lost Detector is set in coastal California. It's about a small transplanted family, a mother and 3 kids, and is told through the eyes of Nikki, who is 6 years old when the novella begins. Her brother Josh is 2 years older, and Tessa, her big sister, an aspiring television actress, is 22 years old. I'm going to read a handful of the tiny chapters. They're very, very short. Flash fiction chapters from the beginning of the novella, and I'll finish with a few tiny chapters that come a little bit later. The first chapter is called Dad's Ears. Dad's ears looked kind, gentle, small. He didn't like them, said they emasculated him. Ma said he was right. He has moon-shaped ears, she said, but please don't ever repeat this. He can't laugh about it. Nothing about him seemed to work the way it should. With such small ears, how did he hear everything we said in private? When me and Josh whispered about running away, he'd say a day or 2 later, how about you kids go study the intelligence of pigeons? Pigeons try to fly, but they really can't. That's why you see them squashed in the road. I wanted to name myself after a movie star, someone mighty and good, someone everyone liked. I thought about it and then asked Josh. As usual, he was nibbling on a carrot, pretending to be a rabbit. I like Meryl Streep, I said. That's just about right. Ma kept saying she was gaining weight. Look at these bingo wings, kids, she'd say. But I loved her the way she was. That was the year I loved her too much. She wants to be sexy, Josh said. Maybe she's tired of being a mother. She was a mystery to us in many ways, but she had large ears, ears you could trust. For the next few months, until the 3 of us left Dad in the middle of the night, my brother called me Streep. Ma would bring us mint leaf lemonade, and we'd sit in the backyard, trying to be kids who were pleasant to be with, who didn't notice ears, who smiled like movie stars. The next chapter is called Villa Monterey Apartments. In California, the earth shakes. Ma says this when we cross from Nevada into California. She pushes the gas pedal hard and the car jumps. Josh and I clap. Today, Ma's meeting with a real estate company, so we get to stay at Tessa's Hollywood apartment with a pool. Tessa's 12 years older than me and 9 years older than Josh. She has a bronzed face, streaked hair. Her boyfriend, West, smiles at me, dark muscles, swimming shorts, Popeye shoulders stretched out against her avocado shag rug. He's just landed a part in a TV show. Josh bounces off the walls. Tessa makes sure he hangs out by the pool all day. Can you step on my back right here, Nikki? West asks. Dad always seemed so old and hurt. I hurt Dad by being so little and clumsy. Once he taught me a lesson and I never bothered him again. West doesn't know how bad Josh and me are. Tessa won't talk about Dad. Josh says, pretend we never knew him. She's not to get hurt, Tessa barks, 100 years crawling into her voice. She's not a baby, Josh tells her, blowing air, making horse lips. Stepping on West's back feels soft, hard, squishy, all at once, maybe like an earthquake. You win, Tessa says. You three fucking win. Tessa acts a lot older than when we left Pennsylvania to study acting in Los Angeles. She walks out swishing a bright red towel behind her. Feet can't hurt anyone, Josh says. In the pool, Tessa and Wes don't talk. They just touch each other's faces, bobbing up and down like otters in the deep end. Josh floats around the edges on a raft. We could be in a movie. 7 short palm trees stand in a line behind the pool deck, as if waiting for autographs. Ma told me smog is invisible once you're in it. Everything sparkles in California. The vacancy sign on the apartment building, West's frog goggles, the 2 lines of pool water slipping from Josh's red eyes. This little chapter is called We Could Have Landed Anywhere. Ma drives to Goodwill and finds herself 2 bright dresses. We're starting all over. She's going to sell houses. We have our car shampooed and blow dried. She'll be driving nice, rich strangers around to see properties. So many bugs juice themselves to death on the car. It's like weird brown pie crust around the windows. Ma pours herself a glass of wine, kicks off her shoes. Bug suicide, Josh says. We eat burritos. Ma sleeps in the kitchen nook. Me and Josh get 2 squashed bedrooms upstairs. When the Santa Ana winds come up at night, we run outside in our t-shirts, hypnotized by the feeling of bare feet on warm stone. The stones are green and eggshell white, with see-through lines through them like highways. Ma says this means there's crystal inside. Josh dances wildly, swinging a butterfly net. The smell of jasmine flowers at night make us feel drunk. What's that heavenly smell? Ma says, pretending to swoon. This chapter is called Will We Marry Him? Grant is Ma's real estate partner, very tall, nice to us. He teaches me and Josh how to dry our backs properly, holding an invisible towel. He and Ma steal out for long lunches, sharing meatball sandwiches. Ma has her hair frosted. Will we marry him? No, she clicks her tongue at me. He's 10 years too young for me. Besides, he's engaged. Grant lets me feel his face when he gives me piggyback rides. Thick black hair, bushy eyebrows. We take weekend picnics at the beach. When ketchup blows off the hot dog buns, we all laugh. He and Ma are selling houses like crazy, a great team. Already they've brought home an award and we place it on our mantle. Josh and me want a pet, so Grant builds us a rabbit hutch. Ma buys a bunny from the pet store, white with black spots and shocked eyes, but the bunny won't let us pick her up. Near Christmas, I see Ma and Grant near her car, leaning in. Grant holding Ma's cheeks and letting go. Ma making small animal sounds. She stares at the ground hard, as though something has fallen. She sways. A week later, Grant brings his fiancée Jane by for eggnog. Ma dresses real nice, but she can't outdo Jane. Younger and blonde with magenta lips and outlined eyes. Later that night, Ma falls asleep with the TV on. Josh and I slip outside barefoot. Crickets like crazy, but no car sounds. He opens the rabbit hutch to set it free. Good luck, we say to the rabbit, waving goodbye. Okay, so I'm going to go to a little bit later in the novella, a couple final chapters here. This one's called Our Sloppy Stay Here. Ma's to read stack is shrinking. She lies in bed on fuzzy black pillows, her nightgown buttoned to her throat, reading furiously. She says there are years of good books she's missed. I'm making a Christmas list, trying to think of gifts that don't cost a fortune, like a keychain for Josh. He wants things that fart. I can pick some things up at the gas station by the school. Josh is planning to get Ma a travel Monopoly game, even though we don't travel. I tell him good luck finding one. He says he will, it's not my problem, and that we'll be able to play with her even if she's staying in her room all the time. It has been a year since we've played a game together. He looks for the limited edition. I wonder what it would be like to live on a different planet and just come back to Earth occasionally. For a week or so, I could stop worrying about Ma's drinking. She says our planet will go up in a blaze. Earth is losing its shitty long game to the marriage of humans. Hey, we've really loved our sloppy stay here, Ma says. Okay, so I'm going to read just a few more here. The Look of Combinations. The narrator's a little bit older here. She's more, I think she's about 11 here. The curvy cool girls eat in a flock. The skinny sports girls perform cartwheels and flips. When Lila and I walk home from school, I confess that I'm in love with Peter. Peter Doyle? Yep. Peter looks like he belongs to the beach, like moonstones or fan shells. I ride my bike past his house and a shiver wraps around my hips. At least I think he's nice, I say to Lila, tying my hair into a fountain knot on top of my head. She laughs, slaps her skinny tan knees at the thought that a cute boy would like me. In my school notebook, I write Peter Doyle's name in cursive, let it fly around my own name, testing the look of combinations. At home, I collect photos of swallowtails and other exotic butterflies, especially from Africa. I imagine the lanky arms of Peter Doyle, his elbows flapping toward my house. One day he'll land on me. So I'm going to just read one final chapter now. This one is called Perfecto, and the narrator is 13. Lila invites me to spend the night. I'm trying not to fall asleep on her couch watching the Late Late Show when she finally lets me know what happened. She's walking home from school on Thursday, right along Via Esperanza. She hears a horn, turns, and this guy in a car is staring at her, asking, "Where's Las Palmas Drive?" She points the other way, but he just keeps on smiling. He probably smiled because Lila has plump movie star lips, 5'4", platform shoes, hair the color of dirty lemons, thick and long, wavy. Her eyes are green, like those marbles you don't want to lose. So what happens? I ask, lighting up a cigarette from her mother's pack. The living room reeks of cat pee, and smoke helps block it out. Lately, I've decided I don't want to smell clean. Then he says his brother will give me a ride home. This she reports like a celebrity, her lips swollen with victory. There seems to be more, and it's waking me up. So what's his name, I ask. Perfecto. She says he gave her a present, runs to get it from her bedroom. As she flies down the hall, long hair bounces off her butt. She's back holding a toilet paper wad. She opens it carefully and pinches out a tiny hand-rolled joint. We both stare at it. Lila begins to laugh. Later, we race into the kitchen to make brownies from a box. As usual, we eat half the batter raw. Not long after, I get a stomach ache, lie down in a fetal curl. Later still, chasing each other around the front yard, listening to the neighborhood dogs barking. We're barking back at them. It's her idea. She says we can trick them into thinking we're dogs. One of them is Zorro, my dog, barking madly from our yard. I can tell it's him by his hoarse, pitiful bark. Occasionally he howls, which sounds great, like it's finally coming out from the right part of his body. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Meg.
Thank you.
Jeff Friedman is the author of 7 books of poetry and 1 collection of floating tales. He has received numerous awards and prizes, including a National Endowment Literature Translation Fellowship and 2 individual artist grants from New Hampshire Arts Council. His new book is The Marksman, published by Carnegie Mellon University Press. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks a lot, Karen. Thanks for the introduction. And also, thank you for inviting me to read, and particularly for inviting me to read with these 2 great writers, Denise and Meg. I really enjoyed it. Meg, your reading was great. I love that new book.
Thank you.
So happy to read with both of you. I'm going to, as you say, I'm going to read from The Marksman, if I can get my voice back. There's sort of like a little frog there. But so The Marksman was published by Carnegie Mellon, and there's a picture on the back by Charles Myers with me just returning from the French Foreign Legion. You'll probably notice that. So, okay, I'm going to start out with a poem actually a poem titled My Money, which I would say was a wry commentary on the possibilities of retirement, which I've been practicing since age 10. My money. My money won't buy me a condo, a new car, or even a good dinner. It won't shell out a dime for movies, new clothes, or doctor bills. My money flashes on screen like kills in a Warrior video game. Bells go off. My money is happy where it is, doing nothing, watching me as I watch it. Like MC Hammer, my money says, you can't touch this, claiming it will multiply if I never spend it. My money is useless, but I think about it anyway. Stacks of bills in cyberspace, showering over black soil. There's so much I could buy, and I might even pay off some debts, but the scanners can't find anything in my accounts because when I go to spend it, my money hides from everyone, including me. My money won't even buy me $1, yet it's spreading like a fog that gets in your eye, that causes tears to burn your cheeks, spreading like bits of dust that coat your tongue and cause you to spit and lose your taste for everything. The next poem I'm going to read is called What Happened to the Country. And probably like numerous poets and other writers, I've written a lot of poems about the incredibly cruel and incredibly inept Trump dictatorship. And this is one of them. So, what happened to the country? Some say the president declared the country his and took it home. Some say the country was wild turkeys waddling under the blind blue sky, deer leaping into the foliage, but hunters dispatched them into the next world. Some say that even though hundreds of trucks cranked their winches, the country sank into the quagmire and pulled the trucks down with it, bubbles bursting on the surface. Some say you could still find the country if you have the right map, but so many have followed their maps, disappearing without leaving behind a note or sign. Though many remember the country with tears in their eyes, and many salute when they hear it called by name. Though some decry the country as a false brotherhood, others believe it was an idea, and ideas evolve into other ideas or evaporate like rain beaded on window frames whose glass has been shattered. Without a country, without a piece of land, there is nothing to fight over. And now all of us are refugees, walking in twos or threes toward nowhere anyone can imagine. I'm going to read the title poem, which is kind of zeroes in on a different kind of target or truth. The Marksman. I shot the points off a star dangling in a window, and I shot the lies off the tongue of a liar, who then spoke sweetly about the pleasures of the truth. I shot a spider before it could eat a blue fly caught in its web. When I blew the web apart, the blue fly said a prayer for me, then flew off as though on a mission. As a bald man rose in front of me, I shot the last clump of hair off his pate, and he thanked me for freeing him from the tyranny of hair. I shot out the eyes of an old shoe who stumbled to the river and fell in, floating for days in the reeds. I shot the fringe from black feathers falling from the sky. While the clouds bulked above me, I riddled them with bullets until the rain fell, and then I shot fat holes in the raindrops until the rain became drizzle. When the fires came, I shot holes in the throats of flames, and I shot the smoke too, even as it blinded me. And the echoes swallowed my bullets, and the holes grew lonely. Let's see. What page is that on? I'm going to read a poem about, for years, I've been taking TM, Tai Chi, guitar, yoga, more Tai Chi. And the one thing that keeps coming up over and over is people keep saying to me, less is more. So I decided to write a poem about that cliche. And I often take in cliches and kind of work with them in different pieces. So this poem is titled More or Less. Gurus tell us that less is more, meaning don't try too hard to attain higher consciousness and it will come. And when it comes to love, trying too hard always leads to disaster, or someone saying, don't love me so much, meaning your love is exhausting, or perhaps that your lover is ready to move on, like water over rocks to slip past you. Poetry should come as naturally as leaves to the trees, Keats said, because he knew love didn't come that easily, as he pined for Fanny Braun and coughed up blood on his sweat-soaked sheets. But contemporary sex experts in the media warn, if you don't plan to have sex, you won't have it. But if you do plan it, that might cause a problem, because sex, not poetry, according to some, should come as naturally as leaves to the trees. But no matter how you add it up, whatever works, works until it no longer works. And then you can empty the emptiness from your pockets and meditate on a world filled with everything and nothing, more or less. Well, the next one sort of works in a similar way. I'm going to read a poem called Forgiveness, which I think is on a theoretical level, I can say it's easy to achieve, but on a really gut level, maybe a little bit more difficult. So forgiveness. Forgiveness is a house with open doors and windows and voices rushing through, leaves scattered on the wood floor. When you forgive, demons escape from your body. They ride out on your breath like bubbles or blinding rays of light. They sweat from your brow. They spark from your fingertips. They walk out of your bones wearing your clothes. When you forgive, the sky grows denser and darker. The map of your future dissolves in your hands. You bow your head as though taking communion or receiving a curse in a graveyard. Let it go, everyone says, but you have let it go, and yet it's still ringing inside you. Forgiveness comes when you least expect, like a siren on a crowded street or the crack before the ceiling gives. I think I know I don't have much time to read 47 other poems, but I'll work on it. Okay, the next one I want to take a look at is, or I want to read, is How to Walk on Water. And you can practice this at home. How to walk on water. It's not difficult. Just take a deep breath and forget all those who have sunk before you. Forget Jesus, who was genetically predisposed to moments of flight. Forget Siegfried and his winged boots. That's a trick, an illusion. Forget anything that might cloud your mind or your vision with doubt. Let your arms lift as if strings on a puppet. Keep your eyes open and focused on the rock fringed with moss on the other side. Imagine your body as light. Now shine over the water and let the waves splash through you as the shadows fall deeper under the surface. When you get to the other side, be sure to allow your body to settle into itself, to regain its mass. Now bow your head and act amazed, as if you've accomplished a great feat. Take another deep breath and open your arms to your minions. Thousands of birds clap their wings. I'm going to read a poem about my father called What My Father Heard. And my father was a traveling salesman. And growing up, I was always listening to him talk about how the next sale was going to sort of lead him to kind of the next big deal. It was going to have the best, and as he said, it would lead it, we would be on Easy Street with the next sale. And he died in a really horrible car accident on his way through Iowa as he was turning across the highway to get to the other side. A car hit him doing about 85. And so this poem it conflates that last moment with several other moments in his life. So it moves back and forth in time a little bit, but I think you can follow it. What my father heard. Nearly deaf in both ears, my father heard the clocks ringing in another deal, ringing out big bucks who clamored and clanged like chains dragged from a car bumper, who bellowed laughter in their extravagant palaces, who snapped their fingers and whistled for service and strutted on wingtips. Give me that, he said to no one who could hear him. At home, he called for room service. He called his son the names of bellhops, called his daughters to change his sheets. He heard the wind rushing over the wings of his Buick, the yammering locusts falling out of the trees, splatting his windshield. He heard his hearing aids buzz for him to listen, but he removed them and stuffed them in his pocket so he wouldn't hear his wife repeating, "Be careful and don't spend a fortune." He heard his own drunken laughter with his clients. He heard them say yes, though their lips and bodies said no. If only my damn legs would work right, he said, as he stumbled toward the car. He heard the automatic windows going up and down, the voice of Dean Martin singing, "Saw $1 yesterday, but the wind blew it away, going back to Houston, Houston, Houston." He saw the sticks crossed, the crows lined up in trees, the faces in the clouds, but he didn't hear the warning coming through the leaves. He heard the sky cracking as his foot pressed the accelerator down. He heard the rush of speed and then the sonic boom of his body crashing the sound barrier, the crisp crackle of cash dying in his ears. And I think I have time to read one more poem, so I'm going to try to end on a light note. By the way, I should say that my father treated me and most of my friends as if we were like bellhops, and he would often, my friends loved to be over when he came home, so because he would tip them to go get his luggage. Actually, he would tip me too, but I was too proud. 0. I'm going to end on a lighter note, 0. If I can find the page 38. Anything divided by itself is 1, but not 0. 0 is always 0, always itself. You could count on 0. Without it, you wouldn't know whether you had $100 or $1 million in the bank. Of course, the bank may have reduced your million to 100 without your knowing it. When someone says there's nothing in it for you, that could mean 0, or that there's not enough to make it worth your while, which is not quite the same as 0. When they call you a 0, that means they think of you as a slug or a frog, something with no earning potential. Don't be so hard on yourself, 0 says, always ready to contribute to the solution or the problem. 0s often make it big, but then they're not 0s. They're celebrities or economists. Everyone wants a paycheck with lots of 0s before the decimal. Where would you be without 0? Where are you with it? 0 may not be much, but there's enough of it to last you a lifetime. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Denise Duhamel's titles include Scald, Blowout, Ka-Ching, 2 and 2, Queen for a Day, selected in new poems, The Star-Spangled Banner, and Kinky. She is a distinguished university professor in the MFA program at Florida International University, and her new book is Second Story, published by University of Pittsburgh Press. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for inviting me to read. And thank you, Meg and Jeff. Those are fabulous readings, really fun. My book, Second Story, is actually coming out in March 2021. So, but you can, it's coming soon. And I'll read from Second Story. This is the first poem in the book. It's called Folkways. I see the sea getting closer. I read we'll soon run out of drinking water. I floss the steak out of my teeth. I should be a vegan. Even the teenager told me so. She said I had the right sandals and earrings. I step off the plane, look up my carbon footprint. Greenland is melting due in part to my recent Google search. All my dead iPhones, along with scraps of bologna and turkey bones, add to the landfill populated by vultures in some countries, child scavengers in others. I buy South American fruit in North American groceries. Sustainability is a hoax, the article says, but I recycle anyway, cycle instead of drive when I can. Emma evacuates Santa Barbara, wildfire in her rearview mirror, a laptop covered in ash, and a few books in her trunk. I say goodbye to my furniture and clothes whenever I evacuate for yet another hurricane. Decide what to bring, what to leave behind. My friend's favorite joke. What is the population of Bombay? Wait a second, let me check my watch. When I was young and naive, I had a foster child from Bangladesh. This was before I knew how much the charity's CEO was making. I was an adjunct in New York City with 3 jobs, but I knew I was rich by comparison. I could pretend I was a good person, my sanitized love and concern reflected in the line drawings the child sent. I started to volunteer instead at the Catholic Worker, ladling soup and oatmeal into plastic bowls. The homeless smelled like I would have smelled if I didn't have running water or a toothbrush or quarters for the laundromat. Eileen Miles slept outside their New York City apartment with the homeless, but was sure not to use any resources the displaced needed. Miles took their own food so that the truly needy could get first dibs on dumpster bagels. Until you have no toilet paper, you can't imagine how precious it is. No tampons or moisturizer or shampoo. I live in Florida now, where a graying man makes his home on the beach. He is a war vet, my neighbors say, but I am not sure which war. There have been so many. He showers where others simply rinse off sand. He waited out Irma in a shelter while I drove away with friends. Now he sleeps near the restrooms in the park and shuffles down to the surf, takes his morning swim. When he catches me leaving him half a roasted chicken, he says, thanks for the delivery. He says maybe his luck is changing. Maybe one day soon the ocean will come to him. And this is my Trump rant. Jeff read one too. It's called Howl, and you will hear Allen Ginsberg's scaffolding all the way through the poem. Howl. I saw the best minds of my generation, i.e. Fauci, Birx, undermined by Trump, doctors hungry for truth, dragging themselves through inane press conferences at 5, trying to fix the prez's anger. Angels with hip replacements and fashionable scarves holding up graphs, making predictions, scientific dynamos trying to break through to give us light. Who, in spite of political tatters and hollow men, sat up zooming in the virtual darkness of cold, hard facts, floating across cable news host desks, contemplating death rates. Who bared their brains to the World Health Organization and saw Monday night riots, angels staggering in Lafayette Square, flashbangs illuminating. Who passed by unimaginative reporters with radiant, cool eyes, pleading with Americans not to drink bleach, tragedy among the scholars of pseudoscience. Who were expelled from news conferences by a crazy and obscene know-nothing on the whims of a numbskull. Who cowered in green rooms, undercut, retrieving their speeches from wastebaskets and listening to the terrible thump of Trump through the wall. Who got their words twisted, regurgitated, returning to Joe Scarborough with a plan for keeping nursing home patients and prisoners safer, flattening the curve in New York. Who urged the closing of hotels and theme parks, Paradise Church, shopping malls with their mannequins' torsos glowing night after night with dreams of capitalism, now a waking nightmare of alcohol wipes, cock and endless balls no longer welcome in gentlemen's clubs, strippers shuddering, clouds of debt, no spinning on poles, no dollars, Canadian or American, all the motionless world of highways with no cars. Peter Pans playing solitaire on their iPads, plots and more plots dug up in cemeteries, drunken, safer at home moms and dads banging pans from windows and rooftops in honor of first responders who were busy at work, their kids home from school, storefronts boarded up, blinking traffic lights, ambulances, but not much else, sun and moon and tree vibrations in the spring dusks of Minneapolis and Louisville and Buffalo, until George Floyd, until the protests began, the best minds of the next generation chanting, demanding sanity from the worst King America, who is clearly out of his mind. And this is a shorter poem. It's called Wednesday, April 29th, 1992. The first night of the Rodney King riots, my then boyfriend convinced me to stay home, though I wanted to go to the Nuyorican Poets Cafe where there was a protest open mic. It could get violent, he said. Because I was somewhat self-actualized, I refrained from calling him a coward. Men, I thought, can be afraid too. I was confused as he seemed so much more political than I was. He could name all the American senators and battle dates that were smudges of scrambled time in my brain. He had lived through a coup in another country. He wasn't willing to join in demonstrations and earlier in the day predicted the looting that would happen in LA. I'm not blaming him, but blaming myself for not going alone, for all the times I've stayed quiet, tucked my neck deep in my collar, though revolution is just around the corner, the guillotine and Third Estate. My boyfriend and I stayed in playing Scrabble, feasting on vanilla Sara Lee cake. And I'll end with this poem, which is called Dear Memory, which is the last poem in the book. Dear Memory, what have you done with my keys? I blame you, though it's hard to hold a grudge these days because I usually don't remember why I was angry in the first place. I look at a person, sure she's done me wrong, though the inciting incidents are lost. Former students seem familiar, but their names disperse like cigarette smoke, blowing towards a stool where I once drank myself sick. Now I'm not even sure what city that bar was in. The welcoming pink neon letters, another cloud, as though I am looking at tiny print without my reading glasses. I was on a pink cloud when I first stopped drinking. In fact, I once looked up at the moon, weeping in gratitude. So there, I do recall something. I was walking across the Brooklyn Bridge in an ex's sweatpants, though I'm not sure anymore of his name or if I ever gave those sweatpants back. Usually I'm halfway through a movie on Netflix when I realize I've already seen it, probably in an old-fashioned freestanding theater, perhaps a matinee or a midnight screening, perhaps a popcorn bucket on my lap. That is, if I wasn't on some fad diet. Did I take my pain pill or not? I'm drinking water, but not sure I can detect that bad taste all the way back on my tongue. Maybe I've been drinking more water than I thought. Is it time to go to the gynecologist again? The office usually sends me a reminder postcard, but today I'm holding a letter from the breast center saying it's time again for my mammogram. I usually get a prescription from the gynecologist about a month beforehand. This is how it's been the last few years. I wonder if my doctor is retired or dead. I would call him, but I have forgotten his name. It begins with an S, and I think I remember the exit. I look through the stack of business cards I saved for moments such as this, but no card for him. I go to take out the recycling just moments after I took out the recycling. I stand at the fridge, its door ajar, the cold light bulb, an idea for a poem, which I've also forgotten. A sublime dream that woke me in the middle of the night. A sublime dream I was sure I'd never forget. Ah, here is my key ring. But this gold one with the big square head, what lock could it possibly open? Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. So wonderful. I love the way these books are in conversation with one another. And I would ask Meg if she would please kick off our conversation. And I would ask Meg to unmute first.
And I would.
Well, I have a couple questions for both of you, and your readings were absolutely wonderful. I'm gonna ask Jeff a question first. So Jeff, I love the humor and the dark comedy in so many of your pieces, the permission you've given us to laugh at and with ourselves. This is especially wonderful right now, as humor can be such a potent coping mechanism for these stressful times we're living through. Is this something you're conscious of while writing? Does it pop in by itself? Or do you search for it, or does it find you?
Well, that's a good question, but I think early on as a writer, I thought it was really important to be as morbid as possible. So later, I then began at some point, because I realized I was kind of a class clown, to allow myself to let some entertainment into my work. But I think when I'm writing, as I'm pushing towards something, like the voices of those like early Jewish comedians that I grew up with is just as present as like, you know, Mel Brooks, The 2,000-Year-Old Man, or Woody Allen's I Shot a Moose. It's just as present in my mind as as the poets and the, I read a lot of tales and parables and fables and short stories. And so all of that is present in my mind at the same time. And I also, I guess I would add, I mean, sometimes I'm aware of trying to be humorous, and then much of the time I think it finds its way in there. But I think I saw a documentary called When the Jews Were Funny, and Paula Poundstone was talking about how, I think this applies to me, how her parents and her uncles and aunts were really funny, but they just didn't know it. You know, like they were saying something disciplinary, and it sort of took somebody else to figure out that it was humorous. And I kind of think about like my family and the stuff they said to me, and how it was really in a weird way. My dad kept, about every other moment, my dad would say, "I've had it with you, bub." And I just think the idea of saying bub is funny. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's it. That's about all. Yes, yeah. The answer is yes.
Okay, yeah. It's so much fun. I mean, it just makes it so lively and fun. Your poem, More or Less, with its delightful contradictions, made me think about my own. Less is more and more is less. And I laughed aloud reading it. And hearing it, I didn't laugh aloud because I was on video. I'm thinking about the Keats quote, "Poetry should come as naturally as leaves to trees." Your poems feel this way to me. How does a poem begin, and how much tinkering, editing, revising, etc. does it take before a poem is actually finished for you? Is it different in every case, or?
Yeah, it's usually different. I mean, I think I mean, an idea comes into my head like many people, or a line, or more recently, since I've been writing so many prose pieces, it's a piece of dialogue. It used to be like kind of an image or something, but usually now it's more like a piece of dialogue or something. And then, I don't know, sometimes it takes a lot longer to just finish something. And most of the time I feel like the best things come with a fairly quick first draft and something comes into place. But, you know, but sometimes, a lot of times actually, I can't find an ending or fan my way to it, and I just have to put it away for, you know, time.
Yeah. I find that too. Like, sometimes it can take me a year to find the ending. It's quite frustrating, but then again, it's great when it happens. You know, putting it away can really help.
Well, I would actually want to ask you and Denise a question, but in your case, I want to just say, you know, first of all, that beautiful book, which I've already read twice, I have to say, you know, you've done something like really kind of incredible in the book, and it leads the reader from story to story and impels us towards an ending. And though it's thoroughly involved with storytelling, the stories in the novella as a whole seem interested in taking us inside an emotion that more interesting than that, than completing the whole narrative. Was this a conscious choice of yours in shaping the book, or?
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Well, with flash fiction, I mean, flash itself should create an immediacy, something emotionally charged, like a moment that throws light on a larger and longer standing narrative situation. But by writing the 30 tiny flashes and linking them together, my desired effect was to create sort of tiny windows into the lives of these characters that added up to a feeling about life rather than a plot-driven narrative. Each story chapter focuses on a moment, small and personal, but when sewn together, I hope creates a layered effect rather than a traditional narrative arc. And when I wrote The Lost Detector in these tiny chapters, what I set up to do was to create a sustained feeling about the characters with the focus on what they were experiencing both apart and together as a family. And that what I was hoping what I hope is that it mimics life seen in sort of moments or snapshots.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think what was incredible about it is how they you captured this emotion in sort of each piece, and then but there was an overall arc that you could feel going through the book too. So, you know, I mean, so it was a weird hybrid of novella, flash story, and poem, actually, which kind of leads me to Denise. Well, I was going to ask you a question about the Ginsberg one, but I think I want to ask you this other question, if it's okay, about because it ties into what I just asked Meg. I love that poem of yours, Folkways. You know, I mean, actually, I loved all the poems you read, but you in that poem, you kind of braid memory, experience, fragments of your history, facts, Google searches, an anecdote about others such as Eileen Miles, an encounter with a homeless man, and 3 or 4 storylines with such ease. How did you approach writing this? Was this, and how would you say, would you be able to distinguish the approach to this kind of poem in this book as opposed to earlier books of yours?
That's a really good question, Jeff. Thanks. I guess I've been writing a lot of, I was really interested in Meg's book for this reason. Like, I've been trying to write braided essays. So I've been writing, actually collaborating with another writer, Julia Marie Wade, and we're going like back and forth and obviously we have different experiences because we're 2 different people, but like going back and forth, and that the idea of braiding is coming really naturally to me now, so much more so than it used to be. And I remember thinking at one point, like, I'm just going to put the leaps in and just see if people can follow them. So this poem came through a free write, actually. Like, I try to write every day, for 20 minutes and just whatever comes to me. And I found this poem like almost done from a free write, but I think it's because I did a lot of false starts, and I've been trying to write about this homeless. Like, I just feel like even writing about homeless people is so, like I just feel like appropriate. I don't know. I just feel like very odd doing it to begin with. Like, and yet I kind of am obsessed with this guy, and I always leave him food, and I always like want to make sure he's there, and just to make sure he's still alive. And yet I don't feel like, oh, come stay with me or anything like that. I just so like these boundaries that we have, and yet this kind of kindness that we try to show to one another. And especially, this was written, of course, during the Trump era, where kindness is like kind of thrown out the window. Yeah. And I remembered, so like I just kind of went back in time to all the. Well,
so I think both of you, it's like what I'm seeing, and what I love about both your work is they're sort of like, they're both really complex because it's an emotional constellation. It's not like pinned down to one. In both cases, they're not pinned down to one thing. We don't are 2 things or 3 things. It's just sort of a world that's created in both of these. I feel the world in Meg's stories in the same way. Unfortunately, this is not leading to a question, but it's just responding to both, like this sort of.
Your work has the same quality, Jeff. I definitely think yours. Don't you think, Denise? Yeah.
Yes, like you start in one place and then go. We don't know. No, it's not. Right. You always conclude at a place that seems inevitable, but I never would have come up with it.
Oh,
you know what I mean? I think it's just like those, you have giant leaps too.
You never know where you're going to go, but it all makes sense at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. I appreciate that coming from you too. Yeah. Do you, well, I'm happy to go forward. I have so many questions I wrote down for both of you. And I have them in my head. I mean, I just kept getting questions. So
I have a question for you, Denise. In Dear Memory, I thought you must be writing about me and my memory. I've had these experiences, and they're constant. They're just constant. And thanks for making me laugh. But it's laughing. It's a sad laugh, laughing experience. I love the blend of funny and sad. And do you have ideas in your mind? Well, I think you just answered that, so my question's almost irrelevant. But about what you're going to write about when you sit down to write, or does it just, did you think about, I'm going to write about my memory, I'm going to write about memory or time passing or aging, or does it happen in the actual process of writing?
Well, I didn't, it was so interesting. There's a great book by David Hernandez called Dear Sincerely, and it came out a couple of years ago, and I taught it, and he has all these, Dear Death, Dear, so he was writing these letter poems to abstract concepts, and I was like, oh, wow. Because it's a way to talk about, it was a container to talk about these kind of horrifying, and, like having a mom who's older, it's like, I see my future, I know it's coming. And so it's almost like get it down while I still remember it, because even as I was writing it, I'm thinking, I'm going to just forget.
It gave you a way to say it. It gave
you like to write while you're in the, going through it is kind of interesting. And it pairs other places in the book. There's other like Dear, letter poems. And one is to, Dear American Amnesia. And it's all the stuff that Americans like press down or try to forget, you know, in terms of race relations and violence and, you know, whatever. So
Yeah, the collective denial is sort
yeah.
of, you know, especially when we grew up, you know, because like the history books and everything,
Oh,
with the story that it told is left out 95% of the story, you know.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. When I went to school, we were obsessed, or my history teacher was obsessed with the Holocaust. So we saw every, you know, every film strip, every, you know, just talked about it all the time. And it was amazing. You know, it's obviously amazing to see and to learn about and to be horrified by. But we never, American slavery, because I grew up in the North and I grew up in Rhode Island. It was like, yeah, those Southerners are really bad. Anyway, next stop, you know, like we had no part in it. Like,
On to the next subject. Where'd
Yeah.
the Indians go?
yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
had to dress up. Yeah, I don't want to think about it, but yeah, making the crown, you know, the construction paper
Right, those.
and the whole.
So I have a question for both of you, but I mean, I was just, like I said, I was reading your book and your poems, and I was reading Meg's, and I just kept writing questions out. So I hate to like push you, but I want to ask you about the Howl poem, because this is really, I mean, first of all, it was a really timely, hard-hitting poem. I love the way you sort of turned it to right now, in which we have a situation, as some people have said, like the 1850s with a small Confederate group. But what were your considerations? I mean, you know, in writing that, you know, use the syntax and the form of Ginsberg poem, which is one of the most famous poems. Like, so, you know, and like I said, you kind of remained true to it, and at the same time took it in your own, to your own direction. But what were the advantages and disadvantages, the pros and cons with working with a poem like that to make your own poem?
Right. Well, I have been trying to do this poem forever. So, I mean, or just doing a Howl poem. So there's Amy Newman has a great poem on, I think it's on poets.org, but if you just, her name's Amy Newman, I think, wait, let me make 100% sure.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
check
Amy
that
Newman.
memory.
I wanted to make sure, A.M.
Memory.
Newman. And she has a poem called Howl, and it's a feminist take on Howl. And it is brilliant. And so I brought it into my class and I'm like, write your own howls. Like that's all, you know, like the fun first day thing.
Yeah.
So they're writing either, you know, about race or class or gender, what, you know, whatever. And then I was always trying, but I felt this is so weird, but I felt too old to write it. You know what I mean? I think howl is like a young person's cry, right? Like Ginsberg wrote it while young. And then I thought about Fauci, and I mean, I'm not exactly in their generation, but like I am, you know, more in their generation than my students. So I was thinking of them, like they are the best minds of the generation. And that's sort of how it took off. So once I was able to do that, and so it's like hipsters, hipsters became angels with hip replacements or whatever, you know, like I was able to do like something, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just had so much fun doing it.
Did you come up against, I mean, the fame of the poem, did that get in your way at all? Or did any, you know, like borrowing from it, or you just like, let's take it down a peg, you know, or let's play with it?
Not really. I mean, I guess I probably should. I'm glad I didn't think of it, because then I would have been scared to do it. But I mean, Howl, I mean, Allen Ginsberg's Howl will always be Howl, but I just thought it's like another moment in history that seemed
to say
howlable, like
howlable. I like that.
Howlable.
That's howlable, all right. You know,
I know it's crazy, but yeah, no, I didn't. I guess the anxiety of influence was like, I mean, yes, of course I have it, but it was just too fun to
to pass it up.
Yeah. I also have in the same book, there's a poem, "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised," but it's like a feminist version of that.
Oh, Gil Scott Heron, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I just
That's
did it.
wonderful.
Denise, I read an interview with you back in the Rumpus from 2013. I was looking at some old interviews with you about, at the time, I believe you weren't sending out a lot of political poetry. I believe that you actually said that in the interview, that you would put a pause on, sort of the pause button on political poems. That was a long while ago.
Yeah.
But I wondered when and how that sort of changed for you.
It must have been when Trump was elected.
I
was naive. I mean, believe me, I knew stuff was wrong when Obama, I mean, I knew like Bomb
That
was
makes sense. Yeah.
but it was like, oh, we have gay marriage. Oh, we have the affordable health care.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
You know, like there's something that all of us, you know,
Pause button
or
stop.
whatever in our
Yeah.
lives, we're like it's
Yeah.
getting so much better. Like I live in Florida, so I knew there was the Gulf spill. I knew he was like crappy on the environment. You know,
Right.
Paris Accord be damned. Like he was letting them get away with the, you know, like I knew there was stuff. Like it was the Flint water thing was horrifying. It's like he did, you know, like there was stuff he did that was bad. But once Trump got here, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, no. I mean, I really felt like it was impossible to stay silent.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, not
Everybody.
great that Trump was there, but yeah. Thank God for poetry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it turned everybody into political poets, this administration.
Yeah.
You
That's so
gotta
weird. I
put-
don't even remember saying, I'm sure I did say it if it was in the rumpus, but I don't remember saying that.
Yeah. I did read
Interesting.
something about how those wouldn't be the first poems you would publish at the time, but now, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, that seems like a really good place to end, with the place of poetry as we're thinking about conceptualizing our times. Right. So thank you all so very much. What an absolute delight to spend an hour with you. And I wish you all well.
Thanks, Karen. That was
Thank you
great.
so
Thank
much,
you,
Karen.
Dean.